Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Deva Ki Jai. Jai Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which you can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the word emanating from the lotus mind. Adapted to his lotus feet, perfection fills all the eyes. Open your darkened eyes, close my eyes. He is my Lord, birth after birth. Man is satisfied with this. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing his character. Our spiritual master is ocean mercy. Grant the poor and God master devotee. Oh, Master, merciful with us. Give us a shade of your street. Your place that all of us we will. We take shelter, Joe. Guru-pūjā. Swami Maharaj, ISKCON DVD, founder Triad Guru, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada's Guru-pūjā ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki jai. Shri Gaurnitai ki jai. Jai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol. All glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees. Gaur Premanandi, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Let's do it back. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. It's better. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Or maybe the thing is. Hare Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodananda Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhiraye. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, Chapter 9. This is text number 33. Chapter is entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. Ahameva sameva gre Nanyad yat sadasat param Paschadaham yadi tachcha Yo vashishyeta sosmyaham Ahameva sameva gre Nanyad yat sadasat param Paschadaham yadi tachcha Yo vashishyeta sosmyaham Aham evasam evagre Nanyad yat sat asat param Paschadaham yade tachcha Yo vashishyeta sosmyaham. Translation. Brahma, word for word. Aham, I, the personality of Godhead. Eva, certainly. Asam, existed. Eva, only. Agre, before the creation. Na, never. Anyat, anything else. Yat, all those. Sat, the effect. Asat, the cause. Param, the supreme. Paschat, at the end. Aham, I, the personality of Godhead. Yet, all these. Etat, creation. Cha, also. Ya, everything. Avashishyeta, remains. Saha, that. Asmi, I am. Aham, I, the personality of Godhead. Translation. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead, and after annihilation what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Purport, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. We should note very carefully that the personality of Godhead is addressing Lord Brahma and specifying with great emphasis Himself, pointing out that it is He, the personality of Godhead, who existed before the creation, it is He only who maintains the creation, and it is He only who remains after the annihilation of the creation. Brahma is also a creation of the Supreme Lord. The impersonalist puts forth the theory of oneness in the sense that Brahma, also being the same principle of I, because he is an emanation from the I, the Absolute Truth, is identical with the Lord, the principle of I, and that there is thus nothing more than the principle of I, as explained in this verse. Accepting the argument of the impersonalist, it is to be admitted that the Lord is the creator, I, and that Brahma is the created I. Therefore, there is a difference between the two I's, namely the predominator I and the predominated I. Therefore, there are still two I's, even accepting the argument of the impersonalist. But we must note carefully that these two I's are accepted in the Vedic literature, Katha Upanishad, in the sense of quality. The Katha Upanishad says, Nitya Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Ko Bahunam Yo Vidadhati Kaman. The creator I and the created I are both accepted in the Vedas as qualitatively one, because both of them are Nityas and Chaitanas. But the singular I is the creator I, and the created I's are of plural number, because there are many I's like Brahma and those generated by Brahma. It is the simple truth. The Father creates or begets a son, and the Son also creates many other sons, and all of them may be one as human beings, but at the same time, from the Father, the Son and the grandson are all different. The Son cannot take the place of the Father, nor can the grandsons. Simultaneously, the Father, the Son, and the grandson are one and different also. As human beings, they are one, but as relativities, they are different. Therefore, the relativities of the Creator and the created, or the predominator and the predominated, have been differentiated in the Vedas by saying that the predominator I is the feeder of the predominated I's. And thus, there is a vast difference between the two principles of I. In another feature of this verse, no one can deny the personalities of both the Lord and Brahma. Therefore, in the ultimate issue, both the predominator and the predominated are persons. This conclusion refutes the conclusion of the impersonalist that in the ultimate issue, everything is impersonal. This impersonal feature stressed by the less intelligent impersonalist school is refuted by pointing out that the predominator I is the absolute truth and that he is a person. The predominated I, Brahma, is also a person, but he is not the absolute. For realization of oneself in spiritual psychology, it may be convenient to assume oneself to be in the same principle as the absolute truth, but there is always a difference of the predominated and the predominator, as clearly pointed out here in this verse, which is grossly misused by the impersonalists. Brahma is factually seeing face to face his predominator Lord, who exists in his transcendental eternal form, even after the annihilation of the material creation. The form of the Lord, as seen by Brahma, existed before the creation of Brahma, and the material manifestation with all the ingredients and agents of material creation are also energetic expansions of the Lord. And after the exhibition of the Lord's energy comes to a close, what remains is the same personality of Godhead. Therefore, the form of the Lord exists in all circumstances of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. The Vedic hymns confirm this fact in the statement, Vasudevo va idam agra asina brahma na cha shankara eko narayana asin na brahma nishana, etc. Before the creation, there was none except Vasudev. There was neither Brahma nor Shankara. Only Narayana was there and no one else, neither Brahma nor Ishan. Shripad Shankaracharya also confirms in his comments on the Bhagavad Gita that Narayan, or the personality of Godhead, is transcendental to all creation, but that the whole creation is the product of avyakta. Therefore, the difference between the created and the creator is always there, although both the creator and the created are of the same quality. The other feature of this statement is that the supreme truth is Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead and his kingdom have already been explained. The kingdom of Godhead is not void as conceived by the impersonalists. The Vaikuntha planets are full of transcendental variegatedness, including the four-handed residents of those planets, with great opulence of wealth and prosperity, and there are even airplanes and other amenities required for high-grade personalities. Therefore, the personality of Godhead exists before the creation, and he exists with all transcendental variegatedness in the Vaikuntha Lokas. The Vaikuntha Lokas, also accepted in the Bhagavad Gita as being of the Sanatana nature, are not annihilated even after the annihilation of the manifested cosmos. Those transcendental planets are of a different nature altogether, and that nature is not subjected to the rules and regulations of material creation, maintenance, or annihilation. The existence of the personality of Godhead implies the existence of the Vaikuntha Lokas, as the existence of a king implies the existence of a kingdom. In various places in Srimad Bhagavatam and in other revealed scriptures, the existence of the personality of Godhead is mentioned. For example, in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.8.10, Maharaj Parikshit asks, Sachapi yatra purusho vishvastit yud bhavapyayaha mukvatma maya magyeshaha sheti sarva guhashayaha. How does the personality of Godhead, the cause of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, who is always freed from the influence of the illusory energy and is the controller of the same, lie in everyone's heart? Similar also is a question of Viduras. Tatvanam bhagavam slesham katidha pratishankramaha tadrimam ka upashiran ka uswit anusharate 3737. Sri Darshana explains this in his notes, quote, during the annihilation of the creation, who serves the Lord lying on the Shesha. During the annihilation of the creation, who serves the Lord lying on the Shesha, etc. This means that the Transcendental Lord, with all his name, fame, quality, and paraphernalia, exists eternally. The same confirmation is also in the Kashi Kanda of the Skanda Purana in connection with Dhruva Charita. It is said there, Nachavante piyad bhakta mahatyam pralayapadi tochuto kile loke sa eka sarvagovyayaha. Even the devotees of the personality of Godhead are not annihilated during the period of the entire annihilation of the material world, not to speak of the Lord himself. The Lord is ever existent in all three stages of material change. The impersonalist adduces no activity to the Supreme, but in this discussion between Brahma and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is said to have activities also, as he has his form and quality. The activities of Brahma and other demigods during the maintenance of the creation are to be understood as the activities of the Lord. The king or the head executive of a state may not be seen in the government offices, for he may be engaged in royal comforts. Yet it should be understood that everything is being done under his direction, and everything is at his command. The personality of Godhead is never formless. In the material world, he may not be visible in his personal form to the less intelligent class of men, and therefore he may sometimes be called formless. But actually he is always in his eternal form in his Vaikuntha planets, as well as in other planets of the universes as different incarnations. The example of the sun is very appropriate in this connection. The sun in the night may not be visible to the eyes of men in the darkness, but the sun is visible wherever it has risen. That the sun is not visible to the eyes of the inhabitants of a particular part of the earth does not mean that the sun has no form. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 141, there is a hymn, Atmavedam Agra Asit Purusha Veda. This mantra indicates the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, even before the appearance of the Purusha incarnation. In the Bhagavad Gita 15:18, it is said that Lord Krishna is Purushottam, because he is the Supreme Purusha, transcendental even to the Purusha Akshar and the Purusha Kshara. The Akshar Purusha, or the Mahavishnu, throws his glance over Prakriti, or material nature, but the Purushottam existed even before that. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad therefore confirms the statement of the Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Person, Purushottam. In some of the Vedas, it is also said that in the beginning only the impersonal Brahman existed. In the beginning, only the impersonal Brahman existed. However, according to this verse, the impersonal Brahman, which is the glowing effulgence of the body of the Supreme Lord, may be called the immediate cause, but the cause of all causes, or the remote cause, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord's impersonal feature is existent in the material world because by material senses or material eyes, the Lord cannot be seen or perceived. One has to spiritualize the senses before one can expect to see or perceive the Supreme Lord. But he is always engaged in his personal capacity, and he is eternally visible to the inhabitants of Vaikuntha Loka, eye to eye. Therefore, he is materially impersonal, just as the executive head of the state may be impersonal in government offices, although he is not impersonal in the government house. Similarly, the Lord is not impersonal in his abode, which is always nirasta kuhkam, as stated in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam. Therefore, both the impersonal and the personal features of the Lord are acceptable, as mentioned in the revealed scriptures. This personality of Godhead is very emphatically explained in the Bhagavad Gita in connection with the verse Brahmano hi pratishtha-aham, 14:27. Therefore, in all ways, the confidential part of spiritual knowledge is realization of the personality of Godhead, and not his impersonal Brahman feature. One should therefore have his ultimate aim of realization not in the impersonal feature, but in the personal feature of the Absolute Truth. The example of the sky within the pot and the sky outside the pot may be helpful to the student for his realization of the all-pervading quality of the cosmic consciousness of the Absolute Truth. But that does not mean that the individual part and parcel of the Lord becomes the supreme by a false claim. It means only that the conditioned soul is a victim of the illusory energy in her last snare. To claim to be one with the cosmic consciousness of the Lord is the last trap set by the illusory energy or Daivi Maya. Even in the impersonal existence of the Lord, as it is in the material creation, one should aspire for personal realization of the Lord, and that is the meaning of Paschadaham Yad Itachcha Yo Vishishita Sosmiham. Brahmaji also accepted the same truth when he was instructing Narada. He said, Soyam te behitas tata Bhagavan Vishvabhavanaha 2.750 Srimad Bhagavatam. There is no other cause of all causes than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. Therefore this verse, Aham Eva, never indicates anything other than the Supreme Lord, and one should therefore follow the path of the Brahma Sampradaya, or the path from Brahmaji to Narada, to Vyasadeva, etc., and make it a point in life to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, or Lord Krishna. This very confidential instruction to the pure devotees of the Lord was also given to Arjuna and to Brahma in the beginning of the creation. The demigods like Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwar, Indra, Chandra, and Varuna are undoubtedly different forms of the Lord for execution of different functions. The different elemental ingredients of material creation, as well as the multifarious energies, also may be of the same personality of Godhead, but the root of all of them is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. One should be attached to the root of everything rather than bewildered by the branches and leaves. That is the instruction given in this verse. Om Agena Timinandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I feel extremely unqualified to be sitting here in front of all of you. We have stalwarts present. I'm the new guy, but somehow or other I've been asked to give class, and so I'll try and say something that's in some way beneficial. So my initial thoughts when reading this verse were, what's the point? Like, the whole point of the Bhagavatam is devotional service, as we know, to inspire us to perform devotional service. And so then, why is Krishna going into these details? Why is Vyasadeva going into these details regarding Krishna's original existence and how he's there before everything and everybody? And then I remembered that verse from Bhagavad Gita 10.8, where Krishna explains how he's the source of all material and spiritual worlds, and that the wise who know this perfectly engage in his devotional service. And so in that sense, it would make sense that, by understanding actually who Krishna is, then it's only natural that we engage in his loving service. Because after all, we're parts of him. Just like the finger is part of the body. And so if the finger wants, it can go and touch food, and it can stick itself into all different kinds of warm or cold foods, and it will get some sensory stimulation. It will get some kind of sensation by that activity, but it won't actually become nourished or satisfied. It's only by actually performing its natural duty as a part of the whole and feeding the stomach that it will become nourished and satisfied. But still, it's very difficult. After all, the food is right in front of us. The quickest fix possible is to just touch the food. We just want to get that sensory stimulation. And it's right there after all, might as well. I know it's a quick thing I can just get, no problem. But after some time of realizing that actually this doesn't work out, and I end up just feeling very dirty and unsatisfied, then a little finger may come to the point of realizing it should feed the stomach instead of just trying to poke its way around here and there. So it's available. It's easier said than done, but it is available. The process has been given. It's easier now than ever before by engaging Lord Chaitanya's movement. As we can see here, we have so many illustrious devotees completely absorbed in Sankirtan, spreading the Lord's holy names via Harinam and book distribution. And so it's only natural that we engage in this activity. After all, it's so easy. We've been given a 99.9% discount in the age of Kali Yuga if we simply chant Hare Krishna, follow the four good principles strictly, perform the Yuga Dharma, and don't criticize devotees or anybody else, then advancement is very easy, and after a matter of time, then we can go back home, back to Godhead. Prabhupada said in this life, we just follow 4 regs, chant 16 rounds, then we can go back home, back to Godhead. So it's an interesting thing we see here. Prabhupada mentions in the purport about people claiming that God is impersonal because they can't see him in the material world, he's not present. And some people who are religious take it a step further, saying, oh, well, God does exist, but we just can't perceive him. There's no way of describing him because he is inconceivable. But why not? Why wouldn't we be able to see God? I mean, after all, he is God, and so if he wants, then he can reveal himself to us. And so that is there also. There's this inconceivable aspect, but at the same time, if the goal of life is to love God, to know God, to love God, to serve God, then it would only make sense that he would give us some understanding of who he is on a deeper level. Because after all, how can you love somebody you don't know? In fact, the way you get to love someone is by getting to know them. But of course, in the material world, the more we get to know someone, typically there's kind of an arch, and we'll get to know somebody or something, and then we get to kind of like them a little bit more, or like the thing a bit more, and then we really like it, and then we learn more about it, and then we're like, oh yeah, never mind, this isn't that great. But with Krishna, it's the opposite. It's just this ever-expanding upward curve where the more we get to know Krishna, then the more we love him, and the more the deeper our feelings are for him. And so we're so blessed to have the Srimad Bhagavatam in that sense, which is all about Krishna and his devotees who are his representatives. And so by hearing about either one of them, then we're given the boon of love of Krishna in time. In fact, it says in Adi Lila 1:107, Shunile kuribe chitte ragyanari dosh Krishna gata preme havi paibe santosh. That simply hearing submissively will free one's heart from all faults of ignorance, and thus one will develop deep love for Krishna. This is the path of peace. So again, it goes back, this is the 99% discount. You simply hear submissively from the Bhagavatam, from Chaitanya Charitamrita, from Bhagavad Gita, and from exalted souls who have dedicated their lives to Lord Chaitanya. And like that, we will develop deep love for Krishna, which is the goal of life. It's the highest spiritual attainment. It's just to love Krishna and be loved by Krishna. And I wanted to hone in on that a little bit. I was reading in the CC yesterday, Sanatan Shiksha, and therein, Lord Chaitanya tells Sanatana Goswami, devotional service or sense activity for the satisfaction of the Lord is called abhideya because it can develop one's original love of Godhead, which is the goal of life. This goal is the living entity's topmost interest and greatest wealth. Thus one attains the platform of transcendental loving service unto the Lord. And so I always just found it nice to be reminded of what the goal is. And now for the prayojana. When one attains the transcendental bliss of an intimate relationship with Krishna, he renders service to him and tastes the mellows of Krishna consciousness. And so it's just so incredible that this is actually available to us. You know, if you think about it, we've been here for billions of lifetimes. Brahma is middle-aged, according to one, I forget which purport in Prabhupada's books, but as we know, what is it? I think it's 1,000 Divya Yugas in one day of Brahma. And so you add that up into years, and then he's middle-aged. So we've been here for billions and billions of lifetimes. And now we're actually being given the chance to get out of this horrible, horrible existence where we're just getting smashed every single lifetime. It's a huge fake out in that we are thinking, oh, this will make me happy. And we're dedicating our entire lives, to a certain idea that we think will bring us happiness. And it winds up bringing us suffering only. We get, again, just some sensory stimulation. We get some sensation, and then we wind up suffering later. Just like a fish who may jump out of the water thinking, oh yeah, maybe there's happiness out there. He gets some crazy fanatical idea that he can be happy outside of the water. And so then he jumps on the hot sand, and he's like, wow, this is a nice sensation, this warmth. I usually don't get this kind of warm feeling. But he soon realizes that this is actually horrible, and I'm suffering, and I'm not getting any nourishment. And like that, he just fries out on the sand and dies a slow death. And so we're doing this life after life. Hare Krishna Maharaj. And so life after life, here we are. We're the fish. The fish may even build a little sand Lamborghini. And he may build a beach house. He could build a beach house on the sand as well, a little sand castle. And he'll be thinking, yeah, this is nice. But in reality, he's just getting fried out day by day, literally decomposing in the sun. And so this is our position. Somehow or other, we're telling ourselves otherwise. At least I am. And so that's the importance of hearing. As mentioned, that, okay, first you figure out what the right thing to do is, right? So, okay, we've been told we have to associate with devotees, hear Srimad Bhagavatam. And the most important thing is hearing. And then it said, and then one has to do it for a long time. You have to put in the years. His Grace Adi Purush once told me in regard to book distribution, he said, like, yeah, first you figure out that that's the right thing to do, and then you start doing it for a little while, and then you become good at it, and you become consistent with it. And then you just do it for a long time. You just put in the years. And so I'm not so experienced in this, because again, I'm the new guy. But I'm feeling very blessed to have people here. Maharaj, Ramway Prabhu, assembled devotees. Everybody here has put in practically a lifetime of service to Srila Prabhupada's mission. And it comes down to that, to having that kind of association. Because as we know in spiritual life, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And Prabhupada gives in this purport, I read recently in the Gita, he was saying how it's just like a material job, and that once the superior is satisfied with somebody's work, then they'll give them a promotion. So the Mayavadi is the opposite. It's by my austerity, by my penance, by my meditation, I'm going to achieve some state at some point. But we're not like that. We're, Prabhupada gives the example of the baby cat and the mother cat. And so then the baby cat gets picked up by the scruff of the mother cat and brought somewhere else. And so that's our position also, is that we have no ability on our own to become spiritually perfect. I mean, again, if you look at what we're going for and where we came from, we're talking about billions of lifetimes of selfish gratification, just hardcore selfishness. And now we're trying to become completely selfless, trying to attain prema, Krishna prema, where we have absolutely no desire for our own self-interest, where we're purely acting and thinking and feeling and willing in such a way as to please Krishna, regardless of what we may or may not get out of it. And so it's a complete 180 and a half, it's a complete removal from what we've been doing in a very hardcore way for billions of lifetimes. But by the mercy of devotees, then it's possible. And it's not necessarily going to be done by meditating for 12 hours a day, or even doing book distribution for 12 hours a day. will be done by carrying out the order of the spiritual master. And luckily, Lord Chaitanya Prabhupada gave us this order to perform Sankirtan. And then maybe we all have individual instructions from our own individual spiritual masters. Like I know Krishna Kripa Prabhu, he received an instruction from Satsvarup Maharaj to dance in Kirtan. And so we see two things, right? We see one, how seriously he's taken that instruction, and we see the other, how advanced he's become because of it. And so we see what is it, the Avanti Brahmana, who's Gaur Leela, that is reading the Bhagavad Gita, and he's crying in ecstasy? South Indian Brahmana. So he's there. He's not necessarily doing book distribution for 12 hours a day, but what he is doing is carrying out the order of a spiritual master with all sincerity and faith, regardless of the obstacles in his way, namely everybody else laughing at him, making fun of him and saying, what are you doing? Stop doing that. But because he's sincerely carrying out the order of the spiritual master, then he's experiencing the greatest transcendental bliss and love for Krishna. And of course, you see in our own Srila Prabhupada, wasn't doing Harinam or book distribution or washing pots or anything else for his entire life besides carrying out the order of his spiritual master, which was to preach Krishna consciousness in the West and to write and publish books. And we can see that no matter what he did, it was always based around this instruction that he received. It was all catered to these very instructions. And so it would make sense also just from a logical, practical point of view that the way to get out of this selfish state of mind that we've been in for so long is to become surrendered to somebody else who actually has our best interest in mind. And by placing ourselves in that consciousness of I'm just a servant of my spiritual master and whatever he say goes, then we can very quickly get out of our original selfishness by his mercy. And so from what I understand, this is one of the big aspects of how to advance in Krishna consciousness is simply to carry out the order of one's spiritual master, which includes often Sankirtan. Of course, Srila Prabhupada asked everybody to go out every day. It also includes 4 regular principles, following very strictly, and chanting 16 rounds. But then the other side of the coin is of course to avoid offenses to devotees, which is not easy to do nowadays because, at least for me, my mind is always disturbed, and it's very easy for that to translate into being coarse or not giving certain people or devotees proper care and attention, and even unintentionally offending Vaishnavas in that way. But it's so important. We can pretty much do anything. We can go away sometime. We can, we can do anything. Krishna says, even if one commits the most abominable activity, he still has to be considered saintly. He's rightly situated, and we all know that we pick up wherever we left off, kind of thing. But then when it comes to criticizing devotees, then things can go south very quickly. The mad elephant, the bhakti creeper, is ripped up to shreds by the mad elephant of offending Vaishnavas. And it's so emphasized, especially in Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavat, this principle of not offending devotees. And whenever something is mentioned more than once, then it's done so it can be emphasized. And if you read the CC or the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it is like all over the place to not criticize devotees. And not only devotees, but it also says, especially in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, that even if one offends an ordinary living entity, then his worship of Lord Vishnu is useless. It says that, and he suffers great pains. And we know this, that it's a weed in devotional service that can look like the bhakti creeper, especially when we're starting out and we're practicing devotional service or reading Prabhupada's books, and we're getting this understanding of how fallen the entire world is. The entire world is so fallen, actually. And so we're getting this understanding, and we start to look at people in a different way, that, oh, these are the demons, and everything they do is sinful, and to some extent, I mean, in a way, it's true. I mean, if you're being selfish, you're in a selfish state of mind, then you're considered demonic. But to cultivate that mood could be so detrimental. It's a weed in the sense that it could look like the bhakti creeper sprouting up next to the bhakti creeper, because we're thinking, oh yes, I'm getting this gyan, I'm getting this understanding of the world and how it works. But if we're cultivating a critical attitude, critical mentality towards others, then eventually that can spill over into having a critical attitude towards devotees. But we see in so many exalted souls, in our movement especially, this freedom from the desire to criticize others. And it's not freedom from the desire to criticize devotees, but others in general. That's because they have a soft heart, because they've cultivated this love for Krishna in their heart, and that means getting rid of all the dirty stuff. So we see just in our own Srila Prabhupada's mood that he was so merciful to everybody, crazy acid people, bums on the street, you know. And because of that, then you're able to make devotees. That's our whole thing, is we're making devotees out of people who are not devotees. And not devotees means to some extent, okay, they're demoniac. But if we cultivate this mentality that they are demoniac and that I'm better than them, or that they're eternally, they're just sinful, then how could we possibly make devotees that way? But if we cultivate this loving attitude towards everybody, and we understand that Krishna is a super soul in everyone's heart, and we treat them that way, right? The Uttama Adhikari sees that everybody is a devotee of Krishna. And so that's why he's so potent to make devotees. He's already seeing the potential is there, and he's treating them like that. He's treating them according to their potential. People say Prabhupada would look through their souls, and what does that mean? He would see that deep down they're actually already devotees. And because he had that conviction, that understanding, he was so easily able to make people devotees, because he could speak directly to them, not to their conditioning. And so to the extent that we understand this, that everyone's already actually a devotee, then to that extent we'll be potent in making them devotees. It's only natural. It's our faith against their faith. Right? Adi Purush would tell me this, that when we're going on book distribution or preaching to somebody, it's basically our conviction that devotional service is the highest thing, that you should practice devotional service, and that you're a servant of Krishna, versus their doubt or their faith in illusion. That no, I just want to enjoy my senses and go about my materialistic life. And then whoever is more convicted usually will win that battle. And of course, you see with Srila Prabhupada, with so many of our spiritual masters and exalted devotees in the movement, that they transform people. They transform them from someone who's completely materialistic, far gone. I can even speak for myself when I first came. I had so much faith in material enjoyment, as someone who has no faith in material enjoyment. And the way it was done for me was I went to the Govardhan Eco-Village, was seeking, I was impersonalist. I somehow, by Krishna's mercy, got sent there when I wanted to go to India. And the brahmacharis there just softened me up, because they loved me. They actually had love. They had this mood of Radhanath Maharaj, of just being loving and compassionate. And I was so proud and arrogant, and despite that, they just lovingly cared for me and showed compassion to me, and told me about Krishna, and answered my questions humbly, without getting into arguments with me like I wanted to do with them. And then through that, and through their actual conviction and their deep understanding of the philosophy, I was convinced. But if they just wrote me off as some arrogant Westerner who doesn't deserve their time, then what would be the question of me becoming a devotee? I would have just rejected them, went to some Buddhist monastery somewhere in India, and committed spiritual suicide or something. So the thing is there's so much dirt in the heart, though. It's very difficult. I say this, and I'm aspiring to practice all these things that I'm bringing up, but I also am quite cynical, and I have a lot of issues to deal with, to struggle every day to become Krishna conscious. But at the same time, we understand from the Uddhava Gita, 11:20, 27-28, I just just wanted to read that verse really quick because it gives me some hope to reflect on. Because ultimately, we've been given the highest thing. Again, it's this thing. It's the highest form of spiritual realization, Krishna Prema. This is Radha, Krishna, and Vrindavan, Goloka. This is unbelievable. Nobody else, I mean, it's the most confidential of all secrets. But my Lord Chaitanya and Avadut Chandra, Lord Nityananda's mercy, Avadut, and this Avadut Bhav, they're giving us this opportunity to lovingly serve Krishna with pure intention. But we are so, or at least I myself am so far from that standard. And so what to do? Well, here Krishna says to Uddhava, having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. So we have this thing often with devotees where, like, if we see someone else struggling, then we'll be very kind and gentle, and oh no, it's okay, and you're doing great other things, and just keep on with your service. But then with myself or with ourselves, sometimes we may be very critical and thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I did that, or I can't believe I'm thinking this, or why is this still in my heart? But here Krishna is giving a direct instruction as to how we should approach our own self and our own anartas. Because at the end of the day, it's an ocean. Anarta-nivritti is an ocean we have to cross. But by having the right attitude, and that's what will get us across it. And so Prabhupada said attitude determines altitude. And so there's many ways to cross the ocean. But the fastest way is to associate with pure devotees, to render service to them, and to maintain this attitude of, anyway, I have to be patient, and I have to be humble, and I have to just do my sincere best. And in time, I just have the faith and conviction that by Prabhupada's mercy, my spiritual master's mercy, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda's mercy, then my heart will be cleansed. This Chaito Darpana Marjanam. My heart will be cleansed, and I will eventually, by their mercy, engage in pure devotional service to Krishna. So we'll stop there. Take any corrections or reflections, questions. Yes, Ru?
I had something interesting, something that I thought was just this morning when the Lord was just like in the shower. I was in the shower, and one of the Lord just said something kind of interesting. He said, what's one thing that's special about Krishna compared to different demigods or other people? And he said, not like all the Shastras or this and he's Param Brahma Param, but like just a very simple thing. And he said that, Krishna keeps giving you trials. You mess up, okay, try it. You mess up, okay, try it. One more life. Okay, another lifetime, another lifetime. Or you fall down here, okay, keep trying. So I was thinking that's, that one of the most qualities of someone, that even though you keep messing up, keeps giving us tries again and again and again. And I was thinking, like, people in this material world or the demigods, if you mess up with, your interactions or with worshiping and a lot of times people talk about that.
Right.
It's like
Cancelled.
But Krishna's so great that he keeps bringing us back. Even though we mess things up and we embarrass him, being Krishna's representative, he doesn't just shun us completely. So it's all very nice. And then also the more later part of the class was saying how it's going to be careful about developing this critical mentality even for non-devotees. And yesterday there was right at the end of Prime, there's this Christian duo that came.
Oh, I see.
The God hates sin first.
Yeah.
Jesus slander,
Oh, yeah.
some things. And as soon as sin.
Mm.
Basically finding all your sinful, so God hates,
Mm.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
And yelling at them in the microphone. And then go really fast. Yeah, I was thinking that it's dangerous to develop that mentality because then you start feeling that not only my philosophy is superior, I'm superior. I know better than you guys. And, you're all doing the wrong thing, and I'm doing the right thing, therefore you should just be like me. But, for devotees that we're totally not interested in that, we can instead have a spiritual master say, fan the spark, rather than trying to, with a huge dampening blanket on the people, just beat them up and just chain. We want to fan the spark, even with the devotees, we don't want to be acting like guru and be wrong. Unless we're in that position, we're trying to help. But we don't want to be like the Christian guys at the microphone.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just in regard to your first point, I was thinking it's so nice to be reminded of Krishna's feelings towards us. And in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, when Gopakumar finally makes it back to Goloka Vrindavan, and Krishna's like, where have you been? I thought of so many lifetimes I was watching you and thinking, oh, this will be the lifetime it comes back to me, this will be the one. And he said, and then finally I just intervened and I made you take birth in Vrindavan. And in first canto, I think it's Shrimvatam Swakata Krishna 1.2.17. Prabhupada says that Krishna is more eager for us to come back to him and we could understand that we are. And there's this one YouTube video where it's a Rath Yatra, or it's just a Harinam, I forget, but this Christian guy is like screaming at the devotees and it's like, yeah, whatever, doing the usual dance. And there's like a big crowd of people, it was like some event, and eventually like the people got the idea of like this guy's vibe versus like the devotees, and they were like, yeah, you get down from there. And they got like all ganged up on the guy and like got him to like, they took his speaker or whatever and like basically like cut him off. So it's a fact, Krishna's all attractive, so if we're doing that, if we're trying to represent him and please him, then we're much more attractive than the other guys.
Like there's certain emphasis, appreciation, appreciates.
Yeah.
So if you appreciate someone, you gain, and also the names that appreciate others.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you, everybody. I apologize if I committed any offenses here. I'm the little guy, I'm the new guy here, so I don't have that much to offer, but I'm happy to be able to try and serve in some way. And I just want to thank all the devotees here for giving me such nice association for those months I was here, and for Brahma Roy Prabhu for his amazing example. He set his entire life. Chandrasekhar Maharaj for being an emblem of loving devotion. So, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.